Well, hello everyone. I am so excited you're back for an all new episode of the A Wife Like Me podcast. We are live over on YouTube and Facebook, or you might just be listening on any podcast platform, and we're so glad you are here. We've got a returning friend, Bob Paul, with us, and a new friend, Tara LaLonde. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
Pretty close. Okay. And we're just so excited. There's a new book out today, and we are celebrating this message. Everyone here already knows we need all the help we can get in marriage, right? And your new book is all about just that. And you've partnered together in such a cool way. And we're going to hear all about it. But the brand new book out today is called Empowered to Love: Discovering Your God-Given Power to Create a Marriage You Both Love. And I have all the questions for both of you, but so excited. Would you just mind introducing yourselves briefly for everyone in case they are not already familiar with who you are?
I guess I can start. I'm Bob Paul, and I serve as the Vice President of the Focus on the Family Marriage Institute, and have been involved for 25 years now in developing a program that we call Hope Restored, which is a program that reaches out and helps couples that are in pretty severe crisis. And a lot of what we've written over the years has been all that we've been learning through our work with couples about what actually works and what doesn't. So very excited to be here sharing with you, Amanda, and just delighted to be able to have done this with my good friend, Tara.
Yeah. And I am Tara LaLonde. I am a registered psychotherapist in Ontario, Canada. I focus primarily on trauma in my private practice, and I'm also one of the Hope Restored Marriage intensive therapists up here in Ontario. And this is just a super powerful program. Loved the opportunity of collaborating with Bob to write this book, to really take some of the key things from our program that make it unique and bring it to the public in just an easier way to reach everybody. So we're pretty excited.
I love that. What I find interesting is that, I mean, obviously, this is what we do too. We're talking about marriage all the time. Bob, Focus on the Family, that's kind of what you guys are doing. You're talking about, strengthening the marriages and the families. There's so many books on marriages out there, right? I mean, we have one. There's tons, right? But yet you both, we were talking before I hit that record button, and you both sensed the Lord saying, no, there needs to be a book about this. We need to write this sort of book. Can you explain to us what is different about Empowered to Love, and just maybe what you knew the Lord was saying you needed to get out to help couples?
Sure. Yeah, this is it really is a different book. This is my sixth book, and all been about marriage. One of the things that we have, there's a couple of things that have actually been a real motivator for us to do this. One is that in the Christian community, there's a number of things that we are taught about how to approach the whole process of getting married and being married, that actually are some of the things that we find ourselves having to help people unravel later when they're struggling, because they don't realize that they've been unintentionally led astray. And one of the primary things is that as soon as you get married, and you can see this in the unity candle symbol, as soon as you get married, you're supposed to blow out your individual candles and have lit the center candle, which is the relationship, which is basically saying you put all your focus on the relationship and you kind of put yourself aside. And it feels to us that is putting the cart before the horse, because realistically, Amanda, a marriage doesn't exist apart from the people, and it can never be healthier than the people in it. So if you're putting yourself aside, or you're putting your spouse aside and making it all about the relationship, that can't go well for the long haul. And the people are the eternal ones, not the marriage. We're not going to be married in heaven, but we'll be there. So this is about really helping people realign themselves to making sure that who they were created to be and their health and well-being is being attended to, while they then additionally add the importance of making sure that the relationship that they live in is also very healthy, well attended to, nurtured, and successful.
Well, can we just pause right there? And I hear a choir singing somewhere. I hear like applauses and big stadiums. Like, yes, 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 yes. We've been talking, and I've just been talking even with my friends about how we idolize marriage. And even we're taught, you're so right. In the Christian communities, I think we are taught that marriage is an idol, actually. Like we're groomed to come into marriage and live within marriage as though that is the thing. That is everything. I mean, and of course, every Christian out there would likely respond to that by saying, well, no, of course not. I mean, Jesus is king. He is Lord. He's my everything. And yet, however, what is your actual focus, and how within your daily life is perhaps are your thoughts, your behaviors reflecting that, or not? And so I think I just love that. I love that. I don't know, Tara, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I always have lots of thoughts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So kind of one direction that I could take this is even our title, Empowered to Love. When you think about the marriage being the focus, it's so disempowering. But this book gives real hope, because only one of you has to do this to bring change. And when both people are doing it, it's incredible. But we are empowering our readers that if I do this work, if I grab hold of this, I can bring a better experience of my marriage for me and for us. And if both of us are doing that, then this could be something that the world looks at and goes, what's going on over there? Which is what we want. We
Yep.
want our marriage to model what God intended, but we can't do that if we've got it in wrong order.
Yes.
Right? So this is empowering each spouse. And there's something real powerful about that.
And if I could just piggyback on that too, I like what you're saying, Tara. And what we're so clear about, and what we show scripturally actually, is the extent to which the Lord wants us empowered. This isn't just about us saying we want to be powerful and so forth. The Lord has made it so crystal clear that he wants us to be empowered, and that many of us feel so incredibly disempowered. So we're writing this in a way to say, okay, this is about being who God created you to be, and claiming the power, the authority that he's given us to walk with him, to align our lives with him, and to create a relationship that reflects him.
Yeah. So much. I want to get to the ideal situation where both husband and wife are like, I'm all in. Yeah, I want to be empowered to love, for sure. Sign me up. Let's do it. I want to get to that. And what would that look like? But first, so much of what we do here, I mean, everything we do here at A Wife Like Me is exactly what we're talking about. I mean, we're focused on ourselves. What are we doing? What can we do differently? What is our relationship? What does our relationship with the Lord look like? What is he asking of us? What is our responsibility? How are we healthy or not? All of those things, right? How are we representing the gospel in our own lives before we even talk about our marriage, right? So also, one of the reasons we do that is so many wives, as you know, and so many husbands out there too, but we focus on the wives, don't have their spouse's buy-in, right? They don't, they're alone on a ship trying to make their marriage better. They're hungry. They're, so engaged with all the things to make whatever, themselves better and their marriage better. What would you say first to the wives out there who are like, I know my husband is not going to read this book. I know he's probably not even going to get on board with what your book is telling us about or talks about. What do you want to say? What are things that the wife can do to be empowered to do these things that you're talking about? What can she do first? Just, I know, get the book. It's in the notes below. So go grab that, obviously. But for today, she's on her way to work. She's dropping off the kids, getting groceries. She's doing laundry right now, whatever. Talk to her. What are some things she can do?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. Bob, you might have things to add to this.
That's you first.
Yeah. So first of all, I'm just say, I'm so glad that you're working at it and keep working at it. And secondly, I want to say, I get it. I live that. So that's another thing that is kind of exciting about being able to contribute to this book, because I'm one of those wives whose husband doesn't fully buy into this. Mm. Different seasons in our life, he's even been resistant to it. So this can make a difference. Real change can happen for you. My encouragement is allow the Lord to be your husband first. Allow him to draw near to you. And we have lots of different ways on doing that, on making your relationship with him priority first. Stop looking over there into your spouse's what we call yard and what he's doing and what he's not doing. That's disempowering. Focus on what you can do. How do I show up the wife that God is calling me to be? And as I show up and care for my own heart and do the work in my yard and open up the door of my heart to the Lord, that's going to allow me to be full so that I can then overflow and love my spouse without fear, without requiring him to show up one way or the other. And I can do this for his well done, good and faithful servant. And honestly, there's something so beautiful because the Lord's really good at being our husband. It's one of his names. And he can love us and fill us. And he can allow this to happen so that you can have a happy marriage, even if it's not as healthy as you want it to be. This is possible and real. And when we do that, honestly, we have influence on our spouse. It does impact your spouse in little or big ways, but frankly, that's none of my business. That's up to you and him, Lord. I want my well done, good and faithful servant when I get there. And I want to live the fullest life I can live, the most empowered life I can live here. And I want to give my power to him.
Yes.
That's not what God intends.
Yeah. Bob, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, I mean, I think that Tara's story is powerful with that too, because I know that and there's a lot of that you'll find in the book, because we do make a lot of reference to their story. But Tara went into her marriage and was disappointed initially about how her husband showed up. Not all what she was expecting, but by doing her part, which is really what we're talking about, by doing her part and walking out with God what he's calling you to, there has been some significant positive changes. Is it everything that her heart and dreams were imagining? You know, it never turns out like that. We have the ability to create amazing fantasies in our mind of what our happily ever after looks like, and life just doesn't show up that way. But is it meaningful and satisfying and in ways that are dramatically different? Yes. I mean, it's been that way for me too. I know that I am a guy who is focused on relationships, which puts me a little bit at odds. But it's interesting how much I work with men. And what I found that is true about men is that down deep, they all long for an intimate relationship. They want romance and passion in their life. They want things to be good with their spouse. We've just been unfortunately set up to fail, and we've been taught that many of the things that are required for that to occur are, things we should not be focusing our attention on. So there's a lot of hope, because this isn't just a book written to women. This is a book written to people, men and women. And I think that the idea that a man can feel empowered, can feel safe, can feel comfortable and feel free to be a man. This isn't about a book that's trying to teach men to be more like women, like a lot of guys are afraid of. This is about us being able to be fully the men that we were created to be, fully empowered in an intimate relationship that includes some areas of vulnerability that, to have a good relationship, you got to be able to connect open heart to open heart. The other thing I want to say is that regarding what we consider success, we only have one definition for a great marriage, and that is a relationship that both people love and both people love the direction it's headed, nothing short of that. And it doesn't require that you love it for the same reason, as long as you both love it. So it's got to be something that works for the guys too. I know right now my marriage to Jenny is one that we both love. We've been married a good long time. And it hasn't always been that way. There's been plenty of years where it wasn't that way. Well, I'll tell you right now, if you were to ask each of us to give a detailed list of what we love about our marriage, you're going to have very different lists. Yeah. I love our marriage for different reasons than Jenny loves it. She loves her marriage for different reasons than I love it. And it's okay as long as we both love it. So I think it's important to realize that we're talking about that is the ultimate goal, and what needs to be included to get there is likely to be different, but we can bring it all to the party. We can make sure, we can look to find ways to make sure it's all available and all happening.
Differences are not the problem.
Speak into that a little bit.
Differences are not the problem. Yeah. So often we think that we need to be the same, that you need to think the way I think for this to work. Or oftentimes one spouse feels like, I need to disappear. I need to become like them and just go away. That can be either side. Oftentimes, especially in Christian marriages, though, it is the wife who feels like, because of the submission component, I have to disappear, and submission is I disappear. And that can be a misconception for women and for men. That's not what submission is about. That's not God's intent. God, I love, Bob, how you describe this, and maybe you can embellish this, but when God creates something and brings things together, he makes something more, not less. And that is so powerful. He doesn't want the person he created uniquely and incredibly to then go away once they make their vows. He created us uniquely for a purpose. And as we come together with our differences, respecting and honoring and making space for, he makes something bigger and better, not something less. So differences can be celebrated and worked with if you have the right tools.
That's good.
And, I think it's important to recognize that if you're going to be really leaning into the heart of the Lord, that he wants all of us to be standing fully in who he created us to be and be able to spread our wings and soar, to be more, not less. So, I know that I'm right now on a podcast with two very empowered women. That is awesome. I mean, we don't want you to be one drop less. I'm married to a fully empowered woman. And I love that. I want to have room to be fully the man that God created me to be, but I want to make sure that our relationship gives Jenny the full range to be able to be every bit of who God created her to be, not one drop less. And that means fully empowered. I want her to bring every drop of her game to the table. I want her to bring everything that God has given her to us so that together we can be more, like Tara said, not less. There's nothing in God's economy that's reductionistic. He never takes more and reduces it to less. He takes more and he takes things that combine together to create more. So I think the perfect example of that, they talk about oneness. We talk about oneness quite a bit. And it's easy to think that as you take two and you make them one, okay, that's reducing. But the most beautiful metaphor I see of that is when a husband and a wife come together in sexual union and conceive, and the two become three, not less. And in our case, six. And now grandchildren and great grandchildren. So there's, we keep multiplying. There's nothing reducing. And I think for that to be ideally done, we each have to bring the maximum amount of what God has given us to bear on what we're doing and what he's trying to do through us.
That's so good. That's so
It's not
good.
a threat.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I want to circle back to something you said, Tara. We're talking about focusing on ourselves, right? Like as wives or husbands, if you're listening or watching. But I think that, one of the things, I'm just curious to hear both of your thoughts on this if you want, but one of the things we talk about sometimes here on A Wife Like Me, sometimes more frequently and whatever in different seasons, but is about the balance, the tension between, because I think in the Christian community, one of the tricky messages maybe we've been told and taught is that, as wives, if your husbands are being fill in the blank XYZ, our job then is to pray and wait. And so typically a lot of women come into marriage with that mentality. And then while their husbands are actually not healthy, sometimes abusive, what would you say to her? Would you give different input to her in that situation? And does Empowered to Love speak to that, if that makes sense?
Yeah, lots to that question for sure. And a couple of different answers, because there's no cookie cutter answer that fits every relationship or every marriage. You mentioned in some situations there's abuse. We would very strongly say, and this is, I believe, in the book, it's definitely in the program, safety is the umbrella that covers everything.
Yeah.
If it is unsafe, do whatever you need to do to be safe.
Yes.
So if there's physical unsafe or emotional unsafe that you cannot stay within that, get out. Do whatever you need to do. God values the two people in the relationship more than the relationship itself. We would never say, and we do not believe that scripture, when you really understand it, is saying women stay in an abusive marriage. That would be taking away from one of his children who he loves very much. He wants us all to be safe.
Yeah.
So I say that very strongly.
Yeah.
Secondly, in some relationships, you can stay in a relationship where maybe there is some toxicity, but it doesn't feel, and please hear, the woman herself needs to be the one to determine this. There's no shoulds.
Yep.
But maybe that woman feels like, you know what? I feel like I can stay and be well and thrive. So in those situations, we can't control, we can't make him stop, fill in the blank, but we can do what we call waiting well. And that is, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to work on getting healthy. I'm going to have healthy boundaries. Boundaries are not about, this is what you have to do. Boundaries are about, this is what feels safe for me. If you continue to do that, that's up to you. But I'm going to do this in order to keep me safe.
Yep.
And as I do that work, and I'm going to continue to work with the Lord and be cared up by him, then I can, from a full cared up, safe place with the Lord, then I can love you sacrificially, even though you don't deserve it. And there's something kind of crazy and supernatural about that, because we can't do that in our humanness. Yeah. The only way to do that is to surrender more and more to the Lord. But surrender isn't about lose yourself. It's more about dying to the unhealthy bits of myself so that the true me that God created can show up. And I can be well, even in a toxic relationship, if I feel safe. And that's the caveat. If I do not feel safe, that trumps all.
Yep. Yep. Thank you for that. That's so helpful for those watching. Cause I think, it's easy. And again, I just think we can say what we initially were talking about. So I just wanted to follow up follow that up with, don't just do that for every situation that does not necessarily apply. And so that's so helpful. That's so great. Bob, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I really do. It's interesting that one of the things that we're so clear on is that as God's children, He wants us well attended to and well cared for always. He's counting on us, just like, as a father, as a grandfather, I want to see my kids well cared for. What we recognize is that when we're little, it's our parents' responsibility more or less to be making sure that that occurs. But when we become adults, the responsibility transfers to us as individuals.
Yeah.
And as a grown man, it's my responsibility to make sure that I am well attended to and well cared for. And when I do so, I bless my Father in heaven like my children do when they take good care of themselves as grown adults. And I get to see that and I go, okay, these kids that I love are being well cared for. They're being responsible adults. I am so grateful for that. So our model very much depends upon this. And one of the things that's in the book and has been in some of the other things that we've published is a thing we call the healthy marriage model. And it's actually a picture of what a healthy marriage looks like. And what you'll notice is it's two figures, a man and a woman, and four circles. Okay, now there's an outer circle that is the covenant. This is the marriage. This is the commitment. Inside, there's two individuals with a circle around them. And the circle around each of those individuals is the responsibility to care well for themselves. And inside should be a person who is being well attended to physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally.
Yeah.
Now, there's a middle circle between the two people. That is what we call the interactive space. We have some therapists that call it the cozy garden. Some call it the sunny meadow. We've got various different terms, but it's the place where we engage with one another. And that needs to be a space that is very healthy, well attended to in its own way, so that when either of us walk into that space, we never regret that place. It's where we get vulnerable and known. It's where knowing and being known occurs, which is really biblically what intimacy is supposed to be about, getting to know each other in deeper and deeper ways over time. But it's supposed to be incredibly safe too. And in fact, we look at that as ideally supposed to be the safest place in the world, bar none, in all ways, place where you can be not only naked and unashamed, but naked and unafraid. Now, to Tara's point, if that space, those interactions are not going well and people are not feeling that it's a place that supports them being whole and healthy, it is okay to step out of that interaction without having to step out of the marriage. Now, again, if abuse is going on and it's toxic to the point that it's not safe for you, you may feel the Lord is leading you to go further than that and dissolve the relationship. However, there are so many options short of that may not include, for the time being, spending a lot of time in that interactive space. If that's really bad for either or both of you, you may just need to step out and do what Tara's saying again and take good care of yourself. But just know that that's an option that never in any way relieves you of the responsibility to make sure that you are being well attended to in all aspects of your being.
Amen. It's just good because I'm sad. I think unfortunately for so many of us, we're doing the best we can. And so many busy young moms out there trying to make their marriage work, trying to help their kids get out the door each day or whatever that looks like. What happens is oftentimes, and we head to church on a Sunday morning for a service, and we are taught the little bit of the teaching that comes to us regarding marriage that many wives are getting is simply just a very short message, right? Maybe once or twice a year from the pulpit, perhaps. And I just love that we're talking deeply about this, because what you've already said and what you make so clear in all of your resources is that, like you said already, there is not one cookie cutter formula for every single marriage. And so when we say something, me included, on anything, it's like we want everyone to recognize this is not an always, A plus B equals C. It's not like that. And so thank you for just diving into that for us, and making it clear that, again, just like you've said, we have got to seek the Lord and listen and really truly follow him and what he is saying for us to do, and get lots of godly counsel. The book, and if you're just joining us, if you're watching or listening, we are talking about Bob and Tara's brand new book, Empowered to Love, subtitle, Discovering Your God-Given Power to Create a Marriage You Both Love. I want to end talking about how we can actually be more empowered within marriage. But before that, can you speak into, I know you addressed one of the different misconceptions, but one of the biggest misconceptions regarding marriage challenges, and how, what that how that's impacting our marriages, and what we can reframe that to be instead that's more healthy.
Now, when you're talking about marriage challenges, are you talking about things from the inside or things from the outside?
Ooh, well, why don't you explain that for us, Bob?
Okay.
As I take notes per usual.
First of all, we live in a fallen world, and the idea that we're not going to be challenged by circumstances is just not, is a fantasy. I mean, things are going to come at us that we don't expect. As an example, I just the other day, a few weeks ago, had our 7th grandchild. Now, the truth of the matter is, though, only 6 of them are alive. We had a granddaughter die at 2.5. And I promise you, there's nothing about that I would have written into the story had I been the author of that part of the story. Stuff comes at us at times that we don't see coming. And it is a challenge to deal with those kinds of things. And it can put a strain on a relationship. COVID, lost employment. I could go on and on and on. We all know them because we all experience them, because it's part of the fallen world. In addition to that, we've got a mortal enemy that is determined to take us out. And he and his minions are working overtime to do everything he can to destroy us personally, relationally, to attack our families. I mean, we know that. And being a committed Christian that is out there with our faith, and now the culture's coming against us. So there's all of those kinds of things that create strain. So those are challenges that we have to, I mean, honestly, that since there's no way around them, we would suggest that you go into the relationship knowing that there is no such thing realistically as happily ever after, even if we started once upon a time. That is a fantasy. Now, contrast that with the stuff that happens internally. We have different expectations. Marriage, my wife has her master's degree in intercultural ministries. And one of the things that when she was going through her program, we became really clear about is that marriage is always a cross-cultural experience. Even though we both grew up in the same city, what went on in my family was very different than what went on in hers. And as soon as we get together, there's going to be a culture clash. And I'm going to say, that's not the way you do it. And she'll say, why not? That's the way my family did it. Well, my family didn't. So those can be internal challenges, different expectations, different personality styles or temperament. Most people don't believe this, but I'm the introvert in the family. My wife is a crazy out there extrovert. And we have different ways of recharging our batteries. I love people, but when I want to recharge, I don't want to be with people. She does. She likes to go to the mall during Christmas time, which makes 0 sense to me.
She loves Black Friday, I'm just guessing, as well.
She does. Yeah. When they started doing the Midnight Madness at the end of Thanksgiving, she wanted me to go spend all night shopping with her. Who in their right mind thinks that's a good idea? So our daughter's like, thank God. But, we're different, and those can create challenges. Different communication styles, different desires about what we want the relationship ultimately. I mean, we could go on and on and on. We all deal with them. And I think that what happens that makes this difficult for people is mistakenly thinking that if our marriage was good, we wouldn't have those things. And that's not reality. It's better to know that those things are going to be there. They will always be there. And then find ways to deal with it and allow the Lord to bring you into unity, even with all of those differences in place. We never teach compromise. We never encourage people to compromise because our God's a no compromise God. He wants us to both love where we're at, how we function, and where we're headed. And if we can just get out of his way, he will consistently, regularly take us there.
I just love that. Tara, anything you want to add?
Yeah, totally agreeing with what Bob is saying. And one area of expectations and ways that we show up that we talk about in the book is kind of dipping our toes into neuroscience, which I think we've done in a way that doesn't make it scary and too technical. But everybody, when we grow up, things get written into our brains, and some things are resolved and go away, and other things stuck. And we end up showing up looking through the lens of those stuck places, whether it's big T trauma, things that are obviously traumatic, or what we would call little T trauma, things that wouldn't be traumatic necessarily to other people, but because it's not resolved in me, it can show up this way. And it kind of hijacks our adult brain. And we end up showing up like a protective teenager, maybe argumentative, angry, whatever, or like a wounded child who is just so hurt and bleeding. And our spouse doesn't see those parts of us. Our spouse sees a grown-up and thinks that's us. When really, oh, there's something going on that's been triggered from our past. And this book talks about first recognizing, because we sometimes don't realize, oh, this actually isn't so much about today. This is more about something that's being triggered from the past and how to care for that. But then also in a relationship, when your spouse is showing up compromised, I would say it's very likely that's not your adult, grounded, spirit-led spouse. That's a child who's hurting inside, and maybe a protective teen that's showing up to try to keep them safe.
Yeah.
But doing it in really unhelpful ways. So if we can become more self-aware and care for those things, then we can get out of what we call a reactive cycle. And we include that in the book as well, ways to be able to get out of that. So these are some of the internal and relational things that people think are the problem, but they're not. We can deal with those. We can get healthy, and we can even talk about those things with our spouse in a safe way, so that when that, what we call shadow monster or hedgehog, shows up, our spouse can recognize, oh, I wonder what this is, and bring curiosity.
I can have that conversation with Jenny later and say, that interaction we just had that didn't go so well, you might not have been aware of it, but you really weren't dealing with your husband at that point. You were dealing with 10-year-old Bobby, who was resisting what it felt like my mother's control. And, and I just reverted back to that, and I lost my head for a moment. But, but in hindsight, I'm able to see that. And we talk about that. And how that can be powerful. And another thing that I want to mention, I think that's worth noting in the book, there's a couple of things that we do to help people in the first part, which is so much more about the person and what caring for yourself really looks like, and how to be your best self in the relationship, including in your relationship with God, and how to develop that so that you really can bring your best self to the relationship. But the other thing that we talk about, and we spend some good time on, is something that I think is at the heart of the desires of all of us, which is to have a lot more romance and passion and adventure in your relationship, and some tools and some techniques and some ideas on how to create endless amounts of that, where that is something that is constantly going on, that your marriage feels like an ongoing adventure filled with romance and passion in ways that both the husband and the wife enjoy. It's not that we've got, the guys have to just kind of kowtow down to the woman and do it her way, that it can be things that he loves too, and that he feels is satisfying. Because it's amazing how many women I talk to who think their husbands aren't really interested. They seem to be checked out around anything having to do with romance. And, I've worked with so many men, and when I get behind, because I know guys pretty well, when I get behind that surface, what appears to be disinterest, I find that every single guy wants tons of romance and passion in his marriage. But what happens is we get frustrated because we don't know how to succeed. We don't know how to make it work. And one of the things I've noticed about men is that when men feel set up to succeed, they basically take their toys and go home. They just give up. And sometimes, you probably won't be surprised for me to say this, you women are a little unpredictable and a little confusing to us guys.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
And it could be really scary for a guy, because we try stuff, and we also tend to like predictability. As men, we tend to like that if it worked yesterday, we know it'll work today. And if it worked today, we know it'll work tomorrow. And I've learned with you gals, just because it worked yesterday doesn't mean it's going to work today or tomorrow. It fluctuates quite a bit, and it freaks guys out. And we just kind of say, okay, there's no way I can succeed here. And we quit and we go home. If all of those things can be brought to the surface and you can be aware of those, we've got some really cool stuff that we're sharing that can enable you to make that something that happens today, and the actual experience of it is ongoing for the rest of your marriage.
So good. So good. I think we all want a great marriage, but we're sometimes not willing to do the hard work to get there, or switch up our routines to get there, which is part of the hard work, or do the internal work that we know we need to do to get there, or actually say hard things that we need, or are thinking or feeling, or shift our schedules, maybe shift our commitments around. Like, it's so easy to not do the work. And I just want everyone watching and listening to be encouraged that the work is worth it. Yeah. And there's no better time than now. Do what I always say, be ruthless about doing whatever you need to do to take steps toward what you want. It is possible. You're seeing it every day with your work. We see it here. And we're cheering you on in this journey, whoever needs to hear this. And there are resources and tools available. Everything that Bob and Tara are talking about is linked below. So check out each of those links and grab their book, see their work that they're doing at Focus on the Family and beyond. And just thank you again for being obedient and for writing. And I just appreciate it. Yeah. We always ask our guests to pray for the wives watching at the end. Either one of you, would you mind praying? Whoever wants.
Yeah, I can do that. Lord Jesus, I thank you for the women who are watching this podcast, who are wanting to know you better, wanting more of you, and wanting to be more the women that you have created them to be, Lord. And I know you want nothing less than that for them. I know you want them empowered. I know you want them healthy and well cared for. I know you want their hearts to be enlivened and filled with joy, excitement about what's going on and what's coming. And Lord, I just ask that you would bless them, that your hands would be upon them, that you would touch them and help them to really know your heart for them, the depth of your love for them, Lord, that they would be able to experience that today, tomorrow, and forever. And I just ask, Lord, that you would bless Amanda as she continues to steward this call and this show, Lord, that it would be able to be an ongoing, continual blessing to all of these women who are tuning in. And we ask, Lord, that everything that we do be done perpetually to your glory and your honor. Lord, that your purposes would be fulfilled in all that we do. And we pray this in your precious and holy name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you both so much. Ladies, be encouraged. You can be empowered to love your spouse, your husband, if you're a husband watching your wife, it is possible. Thank you both for being here, and everyone, thank you for watching. We appreciate you caring and you investing in yourself and your relationship with the Lord and your marriage. So we will be back next week for an all new episode. Bye, everyone.